Welcome to The Bold. 9 days countdown to 2024. I am going to run a daily episode called Mr. President. And this is Mr. President. We want to change the tone. We want to sit back and not to spin, but put the facts right. I promise you, Mr. President will be the best episode in this channel. Kindly subscribe. Mr. President, on 19th of October 2023, in the floors of State House, you signed into law 4 universal health coverage bills. And these bills included the Primary Health Care 2023, and we saw, even unusually, Susan Nahumisha, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of health, even administering oath on community health promoters during the Mashujaa Day celebration in Kericho Green Stadium. This act is where the health promoters are domiciled. The second bit is the Digital Health Act 2023, which is just to ensure that our health records go e-paper, that we will no longer walk to the hospitals with books and papers because the health records and history will be detailed in a digital infrastructure. The third one is the Facility Improvement Financing Act, which I want to believe is about supporting the hospital equipment. And the last one is the Social Health Insurance Act 2023. These 4 have been termed by yourself as revolutionary and progressive. And this is what has birthed the Social Health Insurance Fund to replace the NHIF. I remember the Cabinet Secretary even met with the staff of the NHIF, who are supposed to be transitioned to the new scheme, promising them that their jobs are safe, even though that transition has to come at some job cuts. Now, promoters of the Social Health Insurance Fund believe this is the silver bullet in solving the perennial health financing problems that even some members of this channel understand well, that we have been coming to speak, or rather to support some members of the public during the health distress. Yourself, Mr. President, you have gone to the public and promised Kenyans that through this, government is even going to pay. This is going to pay some contribution to citizens who shall have been deemed to be not being able to pay. And this is under the slogan of leaving no one behind. And Mr. President, it is about leaving no one behind. However, these health reforms have actually faced legal landmines that you have vowed to fight by branding litigants, cartels, and corrupt people who are just out to make government immobile, who are just against rolling out of the new health scheme, Mr. President. It is very true that, of course, there are some forces that could be against that. But why don't you just take a minute and look at the legal problem in the new health reforms? And are they legitimate concerns, or they're political? And I want us to get deep into this. Mr. President, Section 36 of the Section 36 Part 1 said that every person has the right to freedom of association, which includes the right to join, form, or participate in activities of an association of any kind. And so, that is what Article 36 of our Constitution says. And so, Mr. President, this is the thorny issue. This act has stipulated that it is demanding the mandatory membership of eligible Kenyans in this act, that they shall be paid into the fund contribution as set under the law, and the act monies appropriated by the National Assembly gives grants, innovative financing solutions, and donations. So you have demanded that membership in the new health scheme is mandatory. And people are asking, why mandatory? But let's put it there. Remember, it has also contradicted another law, because on another act into this is section 26(5), which says that any person who is registerable as a member under this act shall produce proof of compliance with the provisions with provisions and registration and contribution as precondition of dealing with or accessing public services from national government. Now, there are two things that lawyers and Kenyans are raising eyebrows. Number one, Mr. President, the drafters are saying membership in the new health fund is going to be compulsory. And if you're not a member, then it is going to limit access to government services in other entities and other government officers. Just to make layman understand, if I am not a member, I have not registered and contributed to the new health scheme, then if I am buying land, I cannot even access the title deed. Or I may not even be able to get certificate of good conduct. I understand nowadays it is renewed after every 6 months. Or I may not even be able to get my driving license. And that is why, Mr. President, Kenyans are asking, as much as it is good, sub-article 2 of the same article 36 is saying that a person shall not be compelled to join an association of any kind. It should be voluntary. Kenyans are reading more into this. We begged you that at least make the housing levy be voluntary. You insisted it must be mandatory, and people accepted. And after that, you even reduced it, you even changed it from being a levy into a tax. That means we cannot scoop back our money. So, Mr. President, the new health reform is very good and has many dividends. We cannot underestimate the fact that it is going to have some addition. However, it's going to have some benefits. However, why is it that it limits access or rather enjoyment of other rights by Kenyans? Because that is one of the key issues that the litigants are raising. Mr. President, we have Kenyans who can afford health insurance from other private providers. And even if we're not even affording, there are Kenyans who are already enrolled into some other health schemes. There are companies and organizations that have preference of using some health scheme, a private health scheme, from a different company apart from that of government. Does it mean that they have other private health promoters, health insurers, have to close shop because everyone must be a member of this? And even if so does it mean that if I am already registered in another one, I must have 2 insurance covers on health? Mr. President, this one have very many dividends, and I agree that health is a primary factor. Actually, health is a primary need to Kenyans, but at what cost? And so as we get to 2024, we know very well that from next year, these health reforms are going to be implemented after maybe the court cases clear the way. And I want to advise you, I know I'm not your advisor, and I'm speaking as a layman. There are 3 things that at least you can wait and consider before this is rolled out. Instead of going to public and being seen as pushing this as a personal agenda, I think the government has enough resources and even machinery to conduct extensive civic education on this bill so that it can boost the acceptance and participation of Kenyans. Otherwise, Mr. President, I promise you, this is going to face a backlash, if not a boycott. What am I saying? Recently, I have seen the political class just carrying some piecemeat of these reforms and taking to the public. Yourself, you are on record saying that the issue of people conducting arambes so that they can pay bills for those who are stuck in the hospital, like us members of the board have been doing, is something that is going to be of the past. Simply because if this is implemented, no one will remain behind. Number two, you have also insisted on justice and fairness in contribution, that there is no way that a president or someone who is earning more is contributing the same level with someone who is earning way less. Understandable that those who earn more should contribute more, and those who earn less should contribute less. I have seen the minimum contribution has been capped at 300, the minimum. So if it is responsive to the salary or the net income, then it creates a bit of fairness. And so these two that have been told to the public is what the public want to hear. It is very true that when hustler understands that those who've been earning more will now contribute more, and because they say the hustler will contribute less because he's earning less, he's going to accept and feel happy about this. But you realize that this bill is almost into four. There is the digital aspect, which many Kenyans may not even understand how it is going to work. There is the primary health care, then there is the finance on how it's going to be financed, and then there is that on facility. I believe we should conduct civic education, and instead of taking piecemeat to hustlers so that we get short-term excitement with them, if this is rolled so that someone should not walk to a hospital or a facility and find these things as ghosts, that he just understands. Because I can tell you, the doctors and the people in the stakeholders in the health sector are supposed to be ambassadors. They are supposed to be the ones to teach the public. And if this is not done, it's going to face a backlash. Number two, Mr. President, ensure that other sectors does not, and moving forward, reform in health or any other sector in the country does not collide with other rights of the citizens of Kenya. It will save government millions used in facing litigants in court. Because I can promise you, civil society organizations and private citizens will always fancy taking government to court because they know if government loses, they are going to get money. And those litigation is actually thriving in outright ignorance exercised by drafters and promoters of such bills who are insensitive to the legal implications in this bill. I know very well, and I think we read, that this bill was done and it has very many dividends. It has many advantages. But when it violates some rights of citizens, then that is where it gets to court. You know, Kenyan state to date ask why housing levy is mandatory. And that is why they're also asking that despite the fact that I can get health insurance from the other insurers, this is compulsory. Just the same way they told you, why am I contributing by force while I already have a house? These questions are legitimate. Thirdly, Mr. President, we have acknowledged and noticed that you are putting more emphasis on the public service, or rather on the government side, on service delivery, on service delivery such as the ones of health. But you seem to have given a blind eye on the fact that the private sectors also play a pivotal role in supporting what the government is doing. Now, rolling policies that seems to be isolating the private players are actually going to be a negative energy on implementation of government. I want to give you a good example. When you wanted to implement the Hustler Fund, you had to bring in some banks. You brought in Safaricom, KCB, and I think Family Bank. Some of those are actually banks that are run by also private enterprises. And that is why Hustler Fund did not face hostility from other banks because they were involved. Just like the one for health, it is very true and it is in goodwill that you want Kenyans to have a cover. But how about those who already have covers from other insurance? That is my take on Mr. President. And I want to say special shout out and special credit to Mr. Suba Churchill, the Executive Director of Kenya National Civil Society Sector. That opinion piece is on this: the pitfalls that lie ahead for health insurance fund. And when I got it, I was so much interested in this. Thank you, and let's meet in the next episode of Mr. President. And you can share with me, what do you want us to remind the president tomorrow? This will be a 9 days countdown to 2024. We remind as we recap the year on what has been done in other sectors. I think it also a unique feature that will also not only point out our governance flaws, but should also remind us, is there anything good or that something good or something that administration has been doing? I said in the Bold podcast, we are not just going to be complaining and pointing or criticizing on governance, but we also want to sit, not to spin, but to put the facts straight. Thank you.